This past weekend, I celebrated the passing of yet another year. And to celebrate, we've got something quite special from a brewery that could quite well be my very favourite right now. Manchester's Wonder Beyond. And in the short life of this channel, we've done quite a few of their beers already, but they have all been outstanding. So I'm just going to keep it going till I find one that isn't, as today's celebratory brew is one I've actually had before, but it still managed to blow me away each and every time. Taking a quick browse through my Untapped, it also happens to be one of my highest rated brews to date. So spoiler alert, if you haven't already guessed it, today is gonna be a good one, as we shake and stir things up with a little French Martini. Inspired by the cocktail of the very same name, and credited as being invented in 1980s New York City. This French Martini is infused with lashings of raspberries and pineapple, a splash of vanilla, and dry hopped with Chinook and Citra, for a smooth, creamy, fruity Imperial Milkshake IPA, with a slightly tart finish. And it is brewed with two of my favourite adjuncts, oats and lactose, and to really give it that creaminess and thickness of body. And like I said, I have had this a couple of times before and absolutely loved it. But what I will say is this is coming to the end of its life cycle, with a best before date of next month. But as it is a big, massive 12% Imperial, I am hoping it's been able to capture some of those big and bold flavours right to the end. But let's find out. Let's get pouring. Oh, and it is very raspberry on the nose. And there is a not so subtle creaminess there too. There is a subtle tropical note back there too. They mentioned the use of a lot of pineapple, and that's exactly what you're getting the feel for. To look at, it's got a very Bloody Mary tomato juice vibe to it. And right off the bat, you are getting a sweet, but also slightly dry raspberry. And subtly in behind it, a nice tangy and sharp pineapple. And a little boozy kiss just in behind. And that vanilla, aided no doubt by the lactose and oats, leaves a lovely sweet, soft creaminess in the mouth. There is a bubbly carbonation to it, which is really aiding that tangy pineapple and that slightly tart raspberry. And I've got to admit, I don't recall ever having a proper French Martini, but I can't imagine this is too far off, as there isn't much by way of maltiness or hoppiness. It's just very, very fruit-led so far. And although there is a subtle bitterness in the finish, it is very zesty, very citrusy, which is helping compound those fruity notes even more. As you work your way down, you really do get a feel for some of that 12%. And although it's not exactly blow your head off stuff, there is that soothingness on the way down. And now we are down into the beer. It has remained very consistent throughout. It is still very sharp and quite tart up top, led by that raspberry and pineapple. And although that thickness and creaminess has dissipated just a little bit, it has become slightly more bitter and a little drier in the finish. But that said, that bitterness is still very zesty, very citrusy, and still very much adding to the fruitiness of the beer. And apart from that carbonation, you could very well be forgiven for thinking it was a freshly poured cocktail. There are a shed ton of beers out there that have been inspired by famous cocktails, but they have been just that, beers inspired by cocktails. Whereas this beaut, on the other hand, is coming very close to replicating one. I don't know if I mentioned off the top just how beautiful the can is. One to beyond another that consistently bring out some really unique and beautiful artwork. Right from the nose, you could be forgiven for thinking you've been handed a freshly poured cocktail. It's just so fruity, ever so slightly creamy, and it even looks a little like a Bloody Mary. Then you take a swig, and all of that is confirmed, as a huge wave of raspberry puree really dominate the top notes, while tickling in behind that sharp and sweet pineapple really helps to accentuate the tartness of that raspberry, all the while coating the mouth with a thick, creamy vanilla. But that said, this ain't no kiddie's treat, as although it does resemble something like a petit filou, you also get a good feel for that 12% ABV. That, and there is just a subtle bitterness in that tail, but it is very fresh, zesty citrus, which only go to embolden that fruity cocktail theme. Now, maybe it's me having this beer for the 4th or 5th time, or it could be that February best before date. But I definitely am a little less wowed than I have been in the past. And I definitely think it's that surprise factor wearing off, as the first time you try it, it really will blow you away. But, and this is no doubt the point, because once you start having it on the regular, some of that magic is definitely lost, as this is definitely a special occasion one-off kind of beer, and not something you should ever be looking to session. But I've never been able to say no to a good thing. Either way, just because I didn't love it as much as I did before, it's still a very special brew, and one I will forever cherish. Just maybe not look out for. Well, not anytime soon.